Hey, friends, welcome back to yet another exciting episode of Friends of the Squared Circle. I'm your host, Crander Q, aka my real name, the number one beard and professional wrestling podcast. That's a self proclaimed title, so no one can take it away from me. Are you hearing this, Joe Monroe? Your second place beard is crap. That's right, crap. CRAP. I can spell. Hey, if you want to be just like our guest Peapod and be on an upcoming episode of Friends of the Squared Circle, hit us up on Facebook, YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and that new one. I don't even remember what it's called. Blue Sky, whatever. Tesla's not running. Let us know, and we will get you on a future episode. Also, we do have merchandise at friendsofthesquaredcircle.org. You can get yourself a t-shirt. You can get yourself like a t-shirt with like 9 pictures of me on there. That's crazy. I don't know who designs this stuff. I do. But Peapod, you are here to tell your wrestling story. How are you doing today, sir?
I'm good. That's a heck of an intro.
It's a horrible intro. I just wing it.
Impressed right off the bat. As being a former radio broadcaster, you have a lot of charisma right off the bat. So I'm very impressed by that. So
well, like I told you off camera, I haven't talked to anybody all day. So like, I got to talk to somebody. Got to talk to the camera. I didn't make any reels today, so luckily I didn't do that because I would have made like 30 of them. So
no, that's fine. I've today I've had little ones all over. So basically, I've just been talking to anybody less than 8 years old.
Oh, great! So you're going to basically talk to another one who has the mental capacity of an 8-year-old. So you're doing great today. So.
Hey, I guess I'm 0 for 4 then.
Yeah, I'm just beating Joe Monroe to the punch in the comment section. Like, oh, your mental capacity is under an 8-year-old. Well, I have a driver's license. Those kids don't. Oh, watch out, world! So,
right. No,
so we're gonna jump into it here. Let's talk about those first earliest wrestling memories that you can recall.
So like the biggest thing when I first got into pro wrestling, it was just something random my father would put on. He used to own a restaurant. I'm based out of Northwest Ohio. I live in Northwest Ohio, but I lived in kind of Southeast Ohio for a while. And my father would come home from working in a restaurant. And then he would just come in and he would just throw on wrestling. It was something that he was always just like interested in. He wasn't like a huge fan, but he just like put something on just to like kind of decompress. And it was always Monday Night Nitro. And I was fascinated by Monday Night Nitro. And I had a staunch 8:30 p.m. Bedtime until I was like maybe my teenage years, and then it moved up to 9 o'clock because I'm a bad boy, I guess.
Yeah, life.
Yeah, right. And I would catch a little bit of the wrestling, and I was just interested in it. And my father would always go, "Hey, guess who's gonna win this match? This guy." And like 9 times out of 10, he was right just by entrances alone. I was always impressed by that. And then when I was growing up a little bit more and more, and like around middle school time when a lot of people were at least around me were kind of getting out of wrestling, I was getting into wrestling.
Okay.
For reference, the big storyline at the time for the WWF was Triple H marrying Stephanie McMahon.
Oh, nice. Yep.
So it kind of wrapped around that time. But I started watching, Raw and the WWF programming back when it was called that. I remember the transition to WWE now and everything. And I was getting fascinated and everything. And I had I was part of like through my local area church. There was kind of like a Big Brother program with somebody. And my Big Brother program person took me out to my very first live Raw events. He got tickets through his work or everything. And the first live Raw event was the announcement of Shane McMahon buying WCW. So
that's pretty huge. Yeah.
Yeah, that's always my flex of like, what big wrestling moments for me. It was something like that. And then, just like more and more, I became a fan, and I grew up around wrestling a little bit. I was always fascinated by that. It was music and wrestling was like my two loves out of life. And when I got into college, I decided to jump into the world of radio. My grandfather was in radio for like the longest time out of the Midwest area and a little bit in the South. He was a general manager and a program director for many radio stations, mostly with the company of Muzak. So that was always a big thing. Music, for those who are unfamiliar with the term and the idea, it's basically at the time it was like the music that you would hear in elevators. Music is still around to this day, I believe, but it's under like different company names and everything. It's like kind of like basically if you walk into any supermarket and everything, it's the soundtrack you're hearing. It's kind of the same idea. It's just random music that you would hear in businesses that people opt in to buy and everything. So
kind of where you can hear this podcast in elevators,
Yeah, exactly. That's the next step, I guess, instead of the big giant rectangles that we have right here.
Yeah.
Or YouTube or wherever you listen to, cheap plug here. But the shift back, I joined in college. I decided to do radio and did college radio. And my real name is Chris, but like I always loved the idea of having a radio name and kind of a radio personality and everything, much like wrestling. You'll see how those two kind of intersect in a bit. And I went by name Peapod. It was a random nickname I was given in the senior year of high school. It literally didn't mean anything, and it was something interesting. And all my friends called me that. So when I went into college and went into college radio, I did. I called myself Peapod, and I had like a show at the University of Toledo. And then I also joined with a couple of friends that we also liked wrestling. And before like the podcast boom and everything, was we did a Saturday morning college radio pro wrestling talk show. We called it Capture Suplex Radio. And me and some of my closest friends, some that I still talk to this day, we would go on, we would talk about what we saw in wrestling, what's our 2 cents about everything. We'd do pay-per-view picks. We had like a little title belt, we would battle for every pay-per-view and things like that. We just had a lot of fun. And as it grew, as the show grew on college radio, we got to have some opportunities. We did some live broadcasts when WWE would come into town doing live events, and we got to broadcast live from one of the live events. One time we actually got to broadcast backstage while they're setting up when they were in Toledo, which was a really cool thing. I got to meet John Cena at the time, and this is like John Cena during the Marine time, like the Marine just dropped. So it's like around. So it's like around like early 2000s. Like I want to say like 02, 03. No, excuse me. I want to say I graduated high school in 04. Excuse me. It was like mid to late 2000s. So I would say like 06, 07. Around that time, John Cena was like the biggest deal. That time. And I was really enjoying that, and I was enjoying the wrestling and everything, and I enjoyed talking about wrestling and everything. And I was still wrestling when I graduated college. I was still friends with all my friends. We would go watch wrestling and everything. And then I started like falling out of wrestling just a little bit. And one of my co-hosts of CSR unfortunately untimely passed away.
Sorry to hear that.
No, it's all right. It's okay. But he was a huge wrestling fan, and I got to learn more about wrestling and like the independent wrestling world. And I got to be fans. Like when the moment you like the bubble of television wrestling pops for you, and you learn more about like Mexico and Japan and independence and everything, like it's a whole other world. I wanted just to ingest so much wrestling. But when he passed, it kind of felt like my love of wrestling kind of went away for a bit. And I jumped back into the world of wrestling as a fan right around the time that All In happened and the birth of AEW. And from there, like I jumped back in and everything. So how does this kind of cross into my world of being an independent wrestling commentator? I had a radio morning show. I was a morning DJ. I was in corporate radio for 11 years. I was a morning radio host for like 5 of those 11 years. I jumped around a couple of other things and other shifts on air and also behind the scenes for stuff. But I was a predominant on an alternative rock station in Toledo, Ohio, for a while. And the beginning of 2020, I brought in a gentleman under the name Chris Kohlenberg, and he was launching a local area independent wrestling company called Ruthless Pro Wrestling. And their first show was going to be the spring of 2020. we all know that whole chestnut. We all know what happened there. But because of COVID and all that stuff, and
Mhm.
around April of 2021, I decided to step away from radio. I kind of felt like I wasn't getting anywhere in my professional world,
Mhm.
kind of reached the ceiling. And I went on to greener pastures for my 9 to 5. But during that time, when I left, I was brought in to a buddy of mine who was working at RPW at the time. He brought in, it's like, hey, I think you would be a great idea to be commentator and be on the desk with us. You have the voice, you have the professionalism, we can use your mind for everything. So I'm like, I've never done it. I've never done
Mhm.
broadcasting for radio. I've always been, the guy introing and outroing Nickelback songs. So, I'm sure the skills could possibly cross over. Let's
Right.
give it the old
Right.
college try. And I jumped in with Ruthless Pro Wrestling around April of 2021. And the promoter Chris was like, hey, like it's labor of love. You got to understand this is a wild world. And I'm like, my bills got paid. I'm fine. I'm not looking to do this for money
Right.
necessarily. I want to, this is something fun to do on the side. It's something to explore.
Mhm.
And boy, once I started doing it, the wrestling bug is real.
Yeah.
Um, Fast forward to now the end of 2024. I have an opportunity. I have really the opportunities and doing more, and I've met so much interesting people. Not only in one of my home promotions of Ruthless Pro Wrestling, which is a deathmatch company,
Mhm.
but I've reached out more to other Midwestern companies. I've done some work, post production work for some companies on the other side of the country, and
Nice.
I've been the predominant, or I am a predominant voice for about 6 independent companies right now at the end of 2024. So I've been doing this for a little over 3 years now, and I want to do it more. So like
Yeah.
that's kind of my wrestling journey from fan to commentator so
It's
far. So
yeah, it's
it's wild.
definitely like I mean, I'm not doing anything in the wrestling business because I've always said I don't want to be behind the curtain. I don't want to, go that far. Like I told you off camera, I used to be like the resident sign guy. I'd be the funny guy, get my moment, harass the wrestlers, get my pictures, get my autographs. Now going in the back door, setting up the vendor tables is like a whole new experience. Seeing the behind the scenes in that aspect of, chatting with them beforehand, getting those contacts, getting a chance to, see their real persona versus their characters that they portray out in the ring is just crazy. And, I go back to it, a local promotion here, Heavy on Wrestling. I've known a lot of those guys and gals now like 10, 15 years. And I'm carrying my stuff in. I had broken my back that year, uh, lost half of my toe, but I'm like still plugging my stuff in. And, I look at the one guy, I was like, it's kind of crazy walking in the back with you versus standing in that line for like an hour to 2 hours with my buddy Bob, waiting to come see you guys. And he just laughed. He's like, well, you made it, kid. I was like, I didn't make shit. But, just coming in the back door, setting up 2 hours early, 2, 3 hours early to, be there for 8 hours, to sling my silly little podcast. But, it's a whole nother hustle. Uh, it's, it's so fun just to talk to people that come through the door and why they're excited to be there, and I'm sure eventually you'll be out and about mingling with the fans if you're not already, because it's great to hear their stories and how you can impact them.
It's a wild experience. I'm in a weird spot for being a commentator because
Mhm.
like my job is to help guide the viewer between
Yep.
the television and the art at home, and kind of you're the narrator. It's not about you, and many commentators, I'm not trying to, throw anybody under the bus or anything, but like many independent commentators, and I've heard this from talent and everything, that they try to make it about themselves.
Mhm.
And that's the furthest thing from the truth. My job is to, enhance the story. I use this metaphor a lot. Good commentary is like curtains in a house. Bad curtains, you notice it from a mile away. Good curtains, they just tie the room together. I am there to help tell the tale, to
Mhm.
guide your hand through what's going on and the backstory about everything. Yeah, I always personally, my commentary style is I try to bring you, the viewer, into the reasoning why everything's important. If it's your first time watching a promotion that I'm doing commentary for, I want to catch you up to speed on why that's important,
Right.
and basically make sure that, like, when you jump in, you understand what's going on, you have a good idea what's going on, and then I can have point references to, like, oh, this person these last couple of shows did this, or
Mhm.
this person recently won these titles for these these local area wrestling companies and things like that. Almost in the style of, like, when you read a comic book
Right.
and you see issue 1, 2, 3, 4 for more details. Kind of the same idea. Is
Mhm.
just kind of, if you're jumping in, you don't know the full story whatsoever, but I'm jumping in. I can help you, guide you through, and then if you need more references, I'll tell them and go from there. And that's always my job. And I always do research myself. I always go around and talk to all the wrestlers and go, hey, like, what do you need to be put over? What's some character stuff? Is there certain
Right.
move names and things like that? Even there's certain times that are like, I've got to invent a move name for a wrestler or two, and I'm just like, and I think that's pretty great. And, like, they'll end up using it as a signature move or the name of the signature move or things like that. I think that's a cool experience. But, like, I'm not there to get my rocks off
Mhm.
and boost me. I'm trying to boost the company. And maybe that was the corporate radio guy in me and learning that world and everything. I tell people all the time that, like, the only reason I'm so good, quote unquote, so
Mhm.
fast, it's not because I only know how to talk on a microphone. Like, learning move names and understanding the move names is hard. And I've been working with, like, Walker Stewart of New Japan Pro Wrestling, the English commentator for them. And I've been sitting down and he's been studying some of my tapes,
Mhm.
and me and him have been speaking about stuff, and they just, like, fine tuning the work, because, like, your broadcasting style, your voice is great. Fine tune a little bit of the explanation. Know where your energy
Mhm.
need to pop up and need to rise and fall, and where it needs to go, and things like that. And calling deathmatch wrestling, for my home promotion of Ruthless Pro Wrestling, is different than calling, another promotion that I like to do. It's an all women's promotion, Divine Pro. It's a little bit different from that. And then I work for a bunch of other companies that do other styles. So I have to understand and kind of, like, roll for, like, the ideas and how they want things to be presented. And I'm always open to work and change and take criticism and learn
Oh,
from
definitely. Yeah.
the people that matter. Not necessarily, like, fans at home, which that also helps as well,
Yeah.
but, like,
Yeah.
it's a
Joe
good
Blow on the
barometer.
internet with a keyboard that can type fast. You know. Yeah, and that's the
Right.
thing too. Is like I'm always, I'm my own biggest critic. Like, I'm constantly looking at my background. Like, what's behind me?
Mhm.
Does it look appropriate? Is my water bottle sitting behind me? When I scratch my nose, I'm trying to, like, hurry up and get it out of the camera. Same with my vendor table. Like, if the tape doesn't look right, I'm like, no, we're not putting
Right.
the tape like that. And, like, I work with my buddies once in a while, and I tell them, I'm like, when I'm in the business mode, I'm a little bit more stingy because things have to look nice. Things have to have an appearance. My shirt needs to be tucked in underneath. Like, I have to make sure my shirt's clean. My hair can't be, all over the place. My stickers have to make sense. Like, I've said it on previous podcasts. Like, when I make a sticker, and I go to a lot of independent shows in the mid Minnesota area and Wisconsin, and a lot of the talent are the same. This isn't, I'll just pass on what I'm going to say here next. But I know I'm going to see a lot of the same fans, but I'm going to see some new fans. But if you're going to come to my table and talk to me, or have already met me a month ago because you were at the same promotion, you're not going to want my sticker. So I have to make that sticker stand out so you want a different one. So just
Mhm.
recently at the MAW show, it was in St. Paul, so I put the Minnesota or St. Paul skyline in the background because it was a different show. And then the year before, when I went to the Valentine's Day show, I made it with like a Valentine's Day theme, so that way it had a theme to it. So that way you got something different, even though you've already been to my table, just as well as colors. I'm trying to think of different colors to, I guess, appease to other people. So that way, like, oh, you don't like purple? Well, I got a red design, here too. And, it's silly, but my main logo is purple. Again, I've said this on various podcasts. I have an alternate that's blue, and I have an alternate that's red. And then you put them together, what do you get? Purple. And that's one thing I took away from John Cena is that every month he had a new color shirt, or every year he had a different color shirt combo. So people would buy his merch.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I don't really sell a lot of stuff because right now I know I'm nobody. And that I know. Like, I'm okay with that. So I give a lot of stuff away for free on my vendor tables because no one's going to buy a $25 t-shirt from me. And people can be like, yeah, well, somebody might. Okay, the chances of that happening are 1 out of 100 people if there's 5,000 people at a show. I'll sell one t-shirt for $25. If you
Right.
don't know who the hell I am, you're not buying one of my t-shirts.
Mm-hmm.
I'm sorry. It's just simple statistics. Now, yes, my friends will buy one because they want to support me. But at the same time, real talk, a lot of my friends, $25 for your t-shirt? How long are you going to be doing this, Cal? Like, that's a lot of money, $25. I could buy something else. I granted now $25 is like the new, $5, but
Right.
so it's just kind of, or not new, that doesn't make sense, but you know what I'm saying? It's just like, I realized, okay, how can I sell my stuff?
Mm-hmm.
Light
And
bulb. I make them the cheapest possible. My shirts on my site at friendsofthesquaredcircle.org are $17. You know how much I make off of those shirts? 95 cents. 95 cents. How many t-shirts have I sold? 10. I've made $10 off of my t-shirts for being so cheap. I'm balling. I probably have basically bought myself a meal at McDonald's because they are so cheap. My hats, they costed me about $250. I have to sell them for $25 a piece to make a profit. I literally put on my table for people to come up and buy hats. Now, my friends that have bought them are going to kill me when they hear this because the first wave of hats I sold, I did charge them $30 so they would get the logo embroidery price.
mm-hmm.
Sorry, friends. Now I'm spoiling. Hopefully they don't watch this episode. But so my hats would cost $25 a piece just to break even. When I'm at a vendor table, again, no one is going to buy my hats for $25 a piece because they don't know who the hell I am. I literally put a sign that said, "Make me a deal." And I had a guy who came up. This isn't a slam at him or his family or nothing. This is just what it was. His son is, I'm assuming, autistic. And he kept buying DVDs, and my DVDs were $1. And I kept giving his son DVDs because he was super excited. And he kept coming over and wanted more DVDs.
Mm-hmm.
Take the DVDs. I'm trying to unload them. He was super excited. His son got a whole bunch of stickers, candy, and he asked, well, how much are your hats? I'm like, dude, you've been coming over all night. $5.
Right.
And he took it. And then I had custom tumblers made for my tumbler lady. And he kept looking at that Undertaker tumbler I had. And those were $25 because, those I was actually selling for my sponsor. And he's like, well, how much is the tumbler? I'm like, dude, you've been so good to me. Just take it. And you know what? He came over, shook my hand. He said, this has been the fun night of wrestling. You've been the coolest guy I've met. I don't know how to do YouTube. I don't know how to do Facebook. I'm like, dude, you've been the only one to come over and talk to me for more than 5 minutes at a time. I am happy to meet you. And your son had a blast. He had his cane mask. He got like 20 some DVDs, practically free. You interacted with me. that is my treat to you, you know. But now he knows if he comes to another show, he's going to get some stickers. He's going to get some DVDs for his kid, and I made a friend. You know what I mean? Maybe I'll show him how to use Facebook so I can get that follow. But the thing is I know a lot of people aren't going to buy my stuff because I'm not that guy yet. And I have to just accept it. I'm going to eat that loss, you know?
Mhm. Mhm.
So,
I completely agree. I
yeah.
did sticker designs of myself, and I
Mm,
originally was selling them like 1 for $3, 2 for
yep.
5 because I had 2
Yep.
designs, and I'm making new stickers for next year. One based off of the IWTV logo that I recently put on my socials, and
Mhm.
the other one is just kind of a dumb joke that I do between me and my friend, and I think it's going to be funny enough for my
Yeah.
friend to make a cartoon version of myself saying a funny phrase in the style of the SpongeBob imagination, but he'll say
And
something else on it. But it's just like dumb shit like that,
yeah.
and it gets your name out there and everything. Because again, like people are not coming to a wrestling show or tuning into a wrestling show to hear my voice. They want to
Yep.
watch the action. I'm
Yeah.
here. I am the salt and pepper to the main dish. My wife is a
Yep.
chef, so I'm gonna talk in food terms.
Yep.
That's the thing for what I do. But I love and like being a commentator and like I love like helping to tell a story and help seeing somebody's vision to life. And
Mhm.
I always like and that's the thing. Like I was talking to my buddy John Bullard, who's done wrestling around in the Midwest area for decades, and he has a great, launching a family friendly promotion called Fantastic League of Wrestling, based out of the Indiana area. We kind of launched it, soft launch it, this year. And big season 2 is going to be happening, but like he talks to me. He goes, "Man, like you're part of the back office. Like you need
Mhm.
to be like in the idea of like what we're planning, what's the ideas, who we're booking, things of that nature. Like I'm not in the nitty-gritty of like knowing people's rates and
Right.
stuff like that, but I'm in the conversation of like we have so and so coming in. We want to start booking so and so as such and such, things like that. I'm learning from, a couple of the places of like the ideas, and everything. Like I've had conversations with promoters and everything and learning how they tick and learning how I can be not only helpful on the microphone and helping them tell their story there, but I help run social media
Mhm.
platforms. I help build promotion kits for, and again it's using a lot of that corporate radio lifestyle into the independent world where if you can wear a lot more hats and be a lot more useful, you'll always be a part of the team. You'll always be booked for a show.
Yep.
Stuff like that. I build, kits and helping, people get more sponsors. I've started dabbling in video editing, and I've done a couple of video edits, a couple like show music videos or show intros
Nice.
for companies and everything. And like, yeah, I'm just like really trying to like absorb it all. Like I'm not going to be a wrestler. I'm not going to be bumping. I'm trying to do as little bumps as I
Mhm.
can, and I'm also never going to be a promoter. I don't want
Mhm.
to be a promoter. I've seen that world. That's not for me. I would
Stressful.
crack under pressure. I am in a nice little middle ground where I'm kind of have my feet in both areas.
Uh-huh.
I can have somewhat of a shtick character, whatnot, even though it's more or less me,
Yep.
in doing on air stuff, and then I can use my professionalism, my history, my connections, how I hold myself, things like that, on the back end of the office, so to speak, with a
Yep.
lot of these companies and everything, and just learning more about everything. Because if I don't learn more about the product, and if I don't actively either look like or actually do, which is more of the second. I don't know why I
Mhm.
set the sentence up like that, but I do care about being a part of this. But I want to know more about wrestlers and history and the history of the company and what everybody is doing. If I need to make it sound good to help sell the product to the viewers, because
Right.
if it doesn't sound good or it look good or whatever, if your graphics look like crap, or if your socials are a
Yeah.
game is a little lacking and everything in this day and age.
Visuals matter. I mean, like,
Correct.
I look at some of the wrestling posters out there and I understand that like money is a factor.
But
Money is a factor, but there's so many people out there trying to make a name for themselves. Like you said, you're trying to dabble in things. I make graphics on the
right.
side. Um, Reach out to these people trying to make a name for themselves. Light bulb should go on if anybody's watching this and just be like, oh, that kid down the street, I see he makes stuff. Maybe I should let him try to make a poster and just be like, hey, here's your opportunity to shine. Okay.
Right.
I like what you did. Make me another one. I can't give you anything, but here's an opportunity to show your worth and then build your portfolio.
Yeah.
Give me 3 posters, 3 shows, and then maybe the next one I'll be able to afford it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But I can
Like
only
that.
give you this. You know what I mean? And I've actually talked to a promoter, um, uh, and said, look, I see your posters. Um, Obviously, you get them made, but I'm just asking for a shot. You don't have to use it. I just want to make one for you so you can see it. You don't have to use it. I just want your permission to make one.
Right.
You know what I mean? And my buddy Kevin Hawk, aka Jared, on one of the Draft Bros, who's been on my show multiple 100-time videos, over 100 views. I got to plug him right here. I just said, hey, like, can I just make this and show you? And I made one. He's like, dude, that's freaking awesome. But we don't run that and we don't use that name. I was like, I know you don't do that, but I just wanted to show you the
Right.
graphic that has been in my brain for 3 days, just for funsies. He's like, yeah, that's really cool. I'll show it to, Troy. And I was like, you don't have to show Troy. I just wanted to show you, this is what has been in my brain. And I made the thing behind me, because like I'm constantly just bored at 3 in the morning and throw graphics together. And another thing that I do here at Friends of the Squared Circle, a buddy of mine jokingly said that I'm the pod god. I'm not the pod god. I throw it in his face when I talk to him just to be funny, but it's like, if I find a way to better myself in the podcasting world, being graphics, being a way to get followers, being a way to connect with people, I'm telling the smaller channels how to do it, because the name is right in the podcast, Friends of the Squared Circle. And I told you this right off camera too, that if there's anything you need to share on social media, let me know and I'm going to put it on my page.
Yeah.
I don't know what your follower status is. It could be bigger than mine. It could be smaller, but I'm willing to help those smaller pages get to the next level, because at the end of the day, it's about everybody getting a piece of the pie.
Yeah.
I'm not going
And
to
I
be.
agree.
I'm using Logan Paul as an example. I don't know if he does this or not. I'm just using him as an example because everyone knows who Logan Paul is. Hypothetically, he has, say, 80 million followers. He probably has 180 or 800 million followers. I don't know what he has. But then you see they're only following one person, and that shit drives me nuts. It's like, how are you only following one account? Me, I have 3.5K followers, and I have almost 2,000 things that I'm following, because I want to follow people that follow me and help them get to the next level. Because eventually we're all going to get bigger, and then we're going to find the next person and put our claws into them, help them succeed. And then next thing you know, I'm at 10K, and it's like, oh, you guys are only at 6 or 7. Well, let me help you get to that 10K too. And let's go after the 12 and 15K. Let's get to the next level. And we keep climbing, And then I find somebody like you, hypothetically, Peapod, that's only at 2, that's really cool and has that drive. It's like, all right, that's somebody that gets it. That's somebody that's invested in my time. I want them on my team, and I'm going to put my stock in this person, and boom, they're on my team and they get it. You know what I mean? I'm going to
I'm
find my, you know what I mean? So,
I'm the same way. I've
yeah,
always been like promoting. I've always try to use my platform to
yep,
help boost others. I
yep,
used to do that during my radio days. I would do a lot with like the local music area scene. And recently on
yep,
social media, I kind of shared about like an old music podcast that I did right before I started dabbling in wrestling commentary. And I ended up putting it on ice of a podcast that I had really love and pushed for, that I would bring in. Like I started with local area bands, and like
hmm,
I would have interviews, and then I would work with local area music studios, and they would like perform and do like an acoustic performance or a very unique performance right then and there. And then we would record that and put that on podcast platforms. And, I did that, and it connected people with people, basically.
Yep.
And that's what I always like to do. And I do kind of do the same thing with wrestling, and I did like a span of like 7 podcasts, like 7 different podcast interviews, and like 4 weeks or whatnot, just to hype up a bunch of shows that I was doing and everything. And, much like I always like trying to not only promote myself, but also promote the companies I work for and promote other podcasts that I do on the new podcasts that I've connected to. So like, so far I've enjoyed my time here, and I would love to, help, go, hey, this guy's podcast is very great, and give you love. And that it's networking. It's just networking at 101.
It's totally key nowadays with social media.
Yeah.
And one thing I remember watching somebody before I got into podcasting, someone asked him for a tip on how to be successful with social media. And he's like, well, what do you want to cover? And the guy said, A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I. And the guy's like, okay, well, let me ask you this. When you go to a restaurant, do you order A, B, C, D, E, F, G, H, I, J? And the guy's like, no, I just get, A, B, C. He's like, good. Be a prime rib and get your steak and potatoes. Don't be a buffet. Be good at the prime rib. Be decent with your potatoes and vegetables.
Right.
Don't be a buffet, because that's that shit food, processed food. So I always look at it was be a main course, don't be a buffet. And I tell my friends all the time, don't get so cluttered with so many ideas, because then people are trying to figure out what your identity is. My identity at Friends of the Squared Circle is I interview fans of pro wrestling about being a fan of pro wrestling. That is my shtick. When I have pro wrestlers on, I don't interview them about their career, because that is every other podcast out there. When I have someone like you on here who is, ring announcer. Yeah, we're talking about it today because, you're kind of explaining your stuff, but we're not diving into it so much. We're not talking about I'm staying in my lane. Every other podcast, what do? Every pay-per-view result, every Raw result, every prediction. That's not my shtick. Like, I put it up on the page so people can interact and talk about it. But when we get here in the podcast, I don't mess with it. We'll talk about it a little bit, but I try to shy away with it because I have friends that will talk about that. I have friends that will talk about the independent scene. I have friends that talk about wrestling fashion. I have friends that will talk about trivia, the history of pro wrestling. I have friends that talk strictly about the media side of it, as well as just Detroit wrestling scene. I'm staying in my lane so I don't interfere with their content. They're staying in their lane so they don't interfere with my content. This way we're all different. And they're not a buffet, they're a main course. And that is so important, because that's another reason with me sharing ideas and tips. I'll see something that's very creative. It doesn't fit my brand. And then it's like, oh, hey, Mike, you could use this in your aspect. Well, why do you always give me these? Why don't you use them? Because it doesn't fit me. It doesn't fit what I'm trying to portray. Like, I'll throw it out there. They can use it if they want. I don't care. But it's someone put up a thing like content creators that I want to work with in 2025.
Right.
And I was like, this would be a great thing for you because you're smaller. You could take people that are in the thousands and get them to follow you. A, you get the follows. 2, you can get them on your podcast, and then they can share out your podcast to help you get followers, make a new connection. Then you feed them to me. You know what I mean? So it's just a snowball effect. And then I follow them to show that you're getting them followers. It's just, I'm constantly trying to help everyone with what they need. Just like a lot of the logos in the wrestling podcast scene with me have been created by me. And they get mad at me because I don't want the attention, because then more people want my stuff. And it's like, don't tell people I did it, because I don't want to make more stuff for people.
Right.
I don't charge them. Other people, it's like, well, I'm going to charge you because I don't know you. I'll help you, but people that I don't associate with on a regular basis, I don't want your business because I don't want to do it right now because I'm already swamped. and I don't want to have to charge you. You know what I mean? So I want to be nice and do it for free, but I don't have time to do it for free right now. You know what I mean? So
No, I agree, and I'm
mhm.
kind of I'm in the same mentality. Like at one point I wanted to dabble in the idea of doing a wrestling podcast, but like it ends up being devolving into a results show, and I don't never wanted
Yeah.
to do that. I wanted to like my idea would be more of like kind of like talk about the ideas behind like maybe a certain match or a certain story
Mhm.
arc or things of that nature. And maybe down the line, maybe I will, maybe I won't.
I mean,
I don't know.
you've already talked about that music thing, and
Right.
I know, like I said, I've got a friend. She does a lot of production with the music stuff. Right now, she's,
Mhm.
I think, moving, so she's kind of like taking a back seat with stuff like that. But I mean, um, like I said, I have a friend who did wrestling fashion. So I mean, there's so many things that you could touch on
Oh yeah.
that can set you apart. And if anybody is listening at the 40-minute and 23-second part, the best advice that I can give you is when you're thinking of a name, search out the name on every single platform. Just
Yeah.
starting. If you're interested in starting a podcast, go on every social media and search that name. And if someone has it, scratch that idea because you want the consistency throughout the whole social media because no one wants to
Mhm.
look for Friends of the Squared Circle 7642. They want it the same on all social medias. So
Mhm.
social medias. And another quick tip is make sure you spell the damn words right because when I put the Facebook out there, I spelled circle wrong because apparently I can't spell ever, which is my curse. But yeah, the Facebook was spelled wrong the first time, so I had to restart the page like a jackass. And then I don't have my password for my original Facebook, so I couldn't change it. Then I finally got it changed, and then now I can't delete it. So when I tell people about it, they find the wrong one. Yeah, it's a mess. But tip right now there, number one, free. Next one's going to charge you 50 cents.
Right. No, I get it. I'm lucky enough that I kind of when I walked in and when I
Yeah,
started doing independent commentating, I kind of built on my own name. Already I already had a kind of a built-in nickname because everybody already called me Peapod as it is
yeah,
before I got into radio, before I got into wrestling and everything. So, and I have to because my whole promotion of RPW, in the back in the back office, quote unquote, the promoter's name is Chris. I'm named Chris, and ironically, our heads of our weapons guy and is also named Chris.
oh boy.
But we have to call him Mike. We call him Mikey because when he first joined in, he looked like Mikey from American Choppers. I already have a built-in
Oh my
nickname,
God.
so like,
So
yeah.
fun.
So we all had to like split off, but like people have like picked it up now. So now it's like a running joke because they're like, how many Chris's are at RPW now? And it's funny, but like I answer to Peapod and Chris and whatever, or hey you in the bushes and whatever. As long as it's the day that people don't call me anything or don't call me at all is the day that I'm
Right,
worried about. So
right.
I'm doing my best right now, helping and being a good voice and being a good little worker bee and a lot of stuff. And
Exactly.
hopefully, I want to do this as close to as a living as I can. If I can do it for a living, that'd be rad as hell. I
Yeah,
would love to do stuff for like WWE or AEW or even NWA or even MLW
yeah,
or whatever, but or also just be that guy that like your Dave Prazaks, your Nick Maniwa, your Veda Scotts, your Phil Stampers, the guys that and gals and them and theys that are known and do shows almost every other weekend or every weekend and doing commentary and getting flown out and doing
yeah,
all that stuff. Like I want to be at that point too,
yep,
like that's where my goals are being. And so far, I've had a hell of a 2024. I decided to break out more in the beginning of the year from like the end of 2023 to 2024. And I was like, I want to do a little bit more in the wrestling commentary. I want to break out and do more than just in RPW. Like
Yep.
RPW takes priority. They're my home. They're my number one. You know, let me go from there. And one became two when I joined up with Flophouse Wrestling, that's run by the good people of a
I
gentleman
like
named
that name.
Schwartzy. Yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's just a mixed bag of a lot of fun of Flophouse Wrestling, and then that happened, and then I got picked up with John Bullard and Fantastic League of Wrestling, and then Ethan Hubbard with Divine Pro and all women's promotion, and then Clash Wrestling run by Jeremy Jones, and also We Love Wrestling based out of the Wisconsin area with Tommy Trainwreck, and I've become 6 companies, and
All right,
I
you'll have to
call
send me that Wisconsin one because that sounds
yeah
familiar, but doesn't sound familiar.
yeah
There's like 25 within my area, and I can't keep track of everything here now. It's getting crazy.
they've been around for 1 year. 1 year.
Oh, that can make
So
sense then. Okay,
So they're freshly, they're a little bit of a like 80-20 traditional too, and they're starting to dabble a little bit in the hardcore and the death match world and everything, but
okay,
but they're a lot of fun. I've been very fortunate to do their back catalog of
all right,
shows and everything, and all these companies, mostly all these companies, are either very easily done on YouTube or IWTV. You can see my username is at Peapod calls the number 4 and the letter U, and you can see my see all of my stuff and who I promote and all that
perfect.
stuff, along with all of the places. But yeah, I'm looking for 2025. Like, looking ahead already in my calendar, like I'm going to be very busy. I'm going to have the opportunities to now start being flown out and doing live commentary in other states. Like, I'm a Midwestern boy. Like, not like I never wanted to travel, but I never really had the opportunities or the money and
Hmm.
whatnot to do more traveling. But thanks to wrestling, I've been to New Jersey a couple of times. I've been to, I've been, Chicago's the second. I've been to Chicago a couple of times throughout my life, but like Chicago's the second home to me, and things like that.
A lot of
In
great
20,
promotions down that way too. Yeah,
Oh yeah, absolutely. We run out of the Berwyn Eagles for RPW a lot. So like, and that's a world famous venue for independent wrestling, and I've been always honored to do that as a man who's knows about like Shimmer. Got really excited about that.
hmm
I have the opportunities in 2025 to work with like some great people and wrestlers and wrestling promoters that I've always been a fan of. Hopefully in 2025, more to be announced later throughout the year. But like, I don't want to spoil away too much, or I can't give out too much information. But like, I know in the first 3 months alone for me, I'm going to be able to get flown out to do shows in Texas, in Houston, Texas, in
nice.
Milwaukee, Wisconsin, and a couple of places on the East Coast, a couple of places a little bit farther than Texas. There's like this wrestling thing going on. I don't know if you've ever heard of it. It's called WrestleMania. It's going to be in Vegas this year, or this coming
Mm,
year, and
never heard, never been.
no, I hardly knew him. I hope those nice McMahon boys are going to be doing something with themselves. Jokes aside, there's a good opportunity, there's a good chance that I'm going to be going to Vegas later this year.
Nice.
I've met and met with men and women and people and non-binary people, just such unique, just people in this world, and like and people that like I not only respect, as individuals, but
Hmm.
respect them as workers, and also people that I never thought I would ever work with or receive messages from of just saying, "Hey, can you help me with this?" or "Hey, you're doing a great job with this," or whatever. Like, I'm just a dude with a vegetable nickname. Like, that's like I never thought I would be at this point in this world. I don't have a very
Right.
high opinion of myself, unfortunately, but that's something I'm working on. But
Could have been any vegetable, but you went with Peapod.
yeah, exactly. Well, I didn't. I did not name myself. Somebody else gave me that nickname. It was the first word that popped in the head when they met me. So I don't know what they were thinking of, but it stuck and it's good enough for me.
Perfect.
And I love what I'm doing. I love pro wrestling. It can be very
Exactly.
infuriating at
Yeah.
times, but and very annoying, and a lot of just like what's really funny is like this cycle of wrestling, as I like to call it. Like, you start as a fan, and then you start learning about like the behind the scenes, and you kind of start being like you understanding about like, oh, some of the news sites and everything. You're like, oh, that's interesting. And then you be kind of sometimes you're being like a smart mark, and it gets really annoying and everything. And at one point in that little section, you either just like become like unbearable to talk to, because you're ruining like the facade and the art and the work of wrestling. You're more caring
Mhm.
about stuff like, do you really think a wrestling fan you give a hell about ratings, or how many people are open or going into a building? Do you work for those companies? Do you really care? like
100%. If
like
you're a true wrestling fan, you don't care about the ratings on the television as long as it
exactly.
continues to make, it on TV. You don't care how many people in the building because you don't get a cut of the goddamn gate.
Exactly.
Just shut up and know that it's on TV, that we have more wrestling than anything right now.
I agree. And then, but like at this point where I've working in the business, quote unquote, I can appreciate wrestling so much more. I can
Mhm.
appreciate how the people are presented. I can appreciate the commentary. I can even appreciate like the show graphics or the transitions or the video packages and things like that. I'm just like, I can work on doing something like that. Prime example. I always love the idea of having like a show theme, like a special theme song. And being an ex radio guy myself, I was just like, hey,
Yep.
we should hit up like local area bands and say, hey, they're official. They could be an official theme song for a certain show and everything. And I worked with Ethan Hubbard of Divine Pro, and he found an artist named Blank Era, and she was a brand new artist out, I believe, I think in like the Tennessee area. And she brought out like an EP, and it was a fun EP, and we're like, it's hard rock, but it's female vocals, and like it really hits you. And he's like, let's, I'm in talks with her. Let's try to get her as the official theme. So I built like little short form videos, and I made a promo package and everything featuring from shots from our previous show about it, and like go from there. And like, this is the new theme, like the intro theme for the show that's going to go
Mhm.
on, the next show and everything like that. And we could build up from there. And we've had like for RPW, we've had like these hardcore metal people create songs for us, which was really cool. And being the ex radio guy, and in the world of music and wrestling going hand to hand, I love making like wrestling music videos. I'm trying my hand more at that. I because that always spoke to me about being on the old school like wrestling forums, and like downloading music videos that people creative, like certain
Mhm.
matches or leading ups and everything. And like, that's great marketing, and it's great promotion for your product as well. And more people should do it. I really resonated with like someone who I really liked when I first got into independent wrestling as a fan, and now I've worked with him on a handful of shows and everything. Ricky Shane Page,
Okay.
and his love for a lot of a lot of the music videos, and a lot of promotion that way, and that or mid 2000s butt rock themes with the in the music videos. And I was always a fan of that as well. Like, I always like that. It's just like something very unique, and something bringing it out there. And like, that's what I can appreciate watching television, and or hearing people like Excalibur or Tony Schiavone or Nigel McGuinness, or even Michael Cole.
Mhm.
Now with like the reins are off of him. He's a fantastic broadcaster
Right.
himself. Even though I'm not a big fan of WWE's product, like the in-ring product, like I like obviously you cannot deny their presentation and what they do and everything like that. So I look at all of that and see, what are they doing? And then how can we do it in our independent scale and our smaller companies? Like, we don't have thousands of $1,000 budget for stuff, but that doesn't mean the presentation and what you put out there doesn't look like $1 million. We
Mhm.
we spoke about it ad nauseum. Your graphics, your social media, your presence,
Mhm.
things like that. How you present yourself. How's your commentary? How's your look? How does your ring? How's the ring look? How's the camera situation? How's the sound?
Yep.
Things of those natures. And some people understand that, and some people can need to work on that. Understand that, like, when you work very hard, especially when you like record something like live broadcasting on IWTV, or you live to tape and for like YouTube or whatever, like the sound of everything, the
Yep.
production, the cameras, and making sure your cameras are all looking the same, or if you have different cameras, making sure like the looks of them look similar, things like that.
Mhm.
Those are very important. And a lot of people kind of just brush that away because they're like, oh, whatever, we can set up a phone stand over here and it'll be fine. Well,
Yeah.
no.
Yep.
If it's gonna look shoddy, it doesn't matter how good the wrestling is. If
Yeah.
it's not gonna look good, you're not gonna get anybody fans in.
Yeah.
You
And don't
can
get
have
mad when people correct you in the comment section of nobody in the stands on the hard camera side.
right.
But not to cut you off here, we're getting to
Yeah.
that close mark there. Where can the
No, you're
people
fine.
find you here, and then we'll wrap her up here.
No, that's fine. It's always caring about your products, and
Yeah,
much
exactly. Yep.
and as much as I care about my product, I want you to, if you want to follow
Mhm.
me in my journey and some of the great companies I work for.
Definitely get you on here for part 2 for sure. Yeah.
Of course, would love to. At Peapod calls the number 4 and the letter U. I'm on all of the major social media networks. I also have a link tree, and it kind of shows you a little bit of like my most recent shows, my most recent interviews, a lot of the companies that I work for that I'm proud and honored to be a part of, and go from there. And wrestling is really a great time right now if you let
Yes.
yourself
Mhm.
have the time to enjoy it fully. You'll see so much beauty and so much great work out there.
Perfect, perfect. And again, friends, if you want to be just like Peapod and get on an upcoming episode, all you got to do is reach out to us on social media, TikTok, Facebook, YouTube, anywhere you find us, send us a message today, and we'll get you on your own very own episode. Oh, struggling over my words there. It is your boy, Crander Q. Crander Q out. Now, this part's funny because I always forget where the button is. There we